What's up? Welcome in. It's Hold My Banner. One-stop shop. Everything you need Celtics, everything you need NBA. George Balekji, Adam Pellerin here. Adam, excited to hold my banner with you. Hold our banner, I guess.
Yeah, we can hold our banner together. I don't think the Celtics, unfortunately, will be holding a banner after the injury and the unfortunate injury of Jayson Tatum last night.
They got one banner.
You know, I was thinking, too, it's like hell of a time for me to make my Hold My Banner debut.
This is your debut?
Yeah, this is my debut. I've been on other vodcasts, of course, here in the Nesson
Rush, Hub,
vodcast.
Chat.
Right, but not banner yet. So here I am making my debut on Hold My Banner, and this is what we have to talk about. The season pretty much being over, and maybe next season not being so great on.
This will literally be a where were you when for you. Where were you when you really dove into the aftermath of the Jayson Tatum injury? Where were you when we saw this iteration of a dynasty with a questionable future? It's on the set of Hold My Banner with me.
Yeah, absolutely. I woke up depressed this morning.
Same.
I don't know about you.
Oh, yes.
You know, it always takes me a minute or two to sort of come to and be like, all right, where am I? All right,
it really happened.
Good. What do I have to do today? And then, you know, what was the last thing I did last night? I was like, oh, man, I watched that Celtics game. I watched them lose. And then I watched Jayson Tatum go down with a devastating injury. And, yeah, I woke up sad this morning, man. It was tough. And, you know, I felt badly, first and foremost, for him, right? The person, the individual, Jayson Tatum. Obviously, he's got a very long road ahead. And who knows what kind of player he'll be when he comes back from injury. Hopefully, he'll be the same guy.
Yeah.
But it's going to take him a while to get there. So there's just such a long road ahead for him. Obviously, the ramifications that it has for the Celtics team moving forward, right? We were talking about possibly being a back-to-back champion, and now we're talking about, man, being eliminated, not only eliminated from this round, but maybe not even being a contender this year, maybe the year after that, based on the severity of the injury, based on what the roster looks like. There are just so many questions moving forward.
Yeah, I mean, we're going to get all into that. We're going to talk Jayson Tatum, the aftermath of his injury, the long-term effects it will have on this Celtics franchise, this roster, and what it could mean for Jayson Tatum when we see him on the court again, and the overall landscape of the NBA. This is ramifications beyond this series, and that's where I was. Like, immediately once it happened, this was a great game towards the end. Jayson Tatum finished with 42 points. Jaylen Brown had 39. It was Knicks. It was Celtics. It was an all-time classic of any playoff game, let alone it's in MSG, and the Celtics fighting for their lives to even the series before they bring it back to Game 5. That pass is made. That ball is stolen by OG. He dunks it, and you see Jayson Tatum writhing on the floor. And for me, it was everything slowed down. Everything got quiet. Because this is a superstar that I've followed since he came into the league. I've followed him at Duke. I'm lucky I got to cover him up close, cover them winning a finals, reaching the finals and losing. One of my favorite players to watch, how technical he is, how skilled he is. And he's a guy that is everything you want in your face of the franchise. And when he went down and you see the replay, non-contact, open floor injury, immediately. Now, we don't know anything as of the recording of this show, but as of right now, nothing's out there. But immediately your mind goes to, that is a non-contact injury. That is a ligament, torn Achilles. And to see him go down in that pain, immediately just like nothing mattered. Like this series doesn't matter because it's his long-term health. He's about to be 28, 29, and he hasn't reached his peak, but he could be out for a substantial amount of time, especially when this injury happened.
You know it was serious as soon as it happened, right? And you see the turnover, and then you see Jayson Tatum grabbing his calf area, like down to the foot, and you're thinking, oh no, right? And you knew it was serious too, based on his reaction and the fact that he called timeout right away, right? When he's calling timeout,
he was going for it, yeah.
Writhing in pain on the floor, you knew it was serious. And at that moment, you know, usually something happens, you check social media to see what people are saying. I was completely focused on the TV because I couldn't take my eyes off of what was happening. I think I was in a state of shock like everybody else was. And I could hear the collective, oh no, from Celtics Nation at that point, because you knew that this was not one of those bounce back injuries like we saw in the first round with Jayson Tatum with the wrist. He's able to come back after missing a game. This is not even close to the same thing. We're not just talking about this year, as we pointed out earlier. We're talking about moving forward, next year, possibly beyond, how this impacts him moving forward, how he recovers from this injury, and again, what the roster looks like around Jayson Tatum. There are just so many things to consider with this injury.
This is a guy, since he was drafted, Celtics have been in 122 playoff games. The first one he missed was this postseason when he injured his wrist against the Magic. He returns and scores 35-plus to close out that series. And this is a player, when the replay was shown I was like, oh, he must have stepped on OG's foot and rolled his ankle. Right? That's what I was expecting. And I thought that'd be the worst of it, which is bad, dealing with a high ankle sprain at worst, let's say. The non-contact flash, his reaction. You saw Karl Anthony Towns and Jalen Brunson on the floor were reacting as well, and everyone in the crowd.
That's when you know, right? When you see the reaction of the opposing bench and the opposing crowd, right? You're in enemy territory, then everything just stops, and the gasps and the watching and waiting to see, if he's going to get up. He doesn't get up, and then he's carried off the floor. And then obviously we saw the footage of him behind the scenes in the wheelchair with the hands, covering the face. It was just, all of it was just so devastating.
Yeah, and another reaction. Here's Jaylen Brown when first asked at the postgame presser about Jayson Tatum.
That's tough. That's not really a lot to say.
And that's right after the game, right? Just in a state
after
of
a
shock.
loss.
Yep.
And after Tatum goes down.
Right. And, again, anybody who's blaming Jaylen Brown, by the way, for this injury,
the dumbest
crazy,
thing.
Right?
The
absolutely dumb. That
dumbest thing
on any play, right? So the Jaylen Brown hate can just stop right now when it comes to that injury. But I'm sure that he is thinking about that, right? If I had just grabbed that ball, this never would have happened. There's some sort of guilt, right? I'm sure.
Survivor's remorse.
And somebody has to tell him, it's like, no, it's not your fault, obviously, right? And so, he's feeling a little bit of that, as any human being would, but at the end of the day, not even close to his fault. But you could see by his reaction, just trying to process, to your point, the loss and the loss of Jayson Tatum in the long term.
This team, as they were constructed, when they swung big after coming up short 2 postseasons ago, when they swung big and traded Marcus Smart, when they swung big and traded Malcolm Brogdon to bring in Drew Holiday and Kristaps Porzingis, those are the final signs. I mean, Brad Stevens in the front office tried time and time again, what 5 can we put together to win a ring? They wanted to maximize having the Jays almost to their peak. And they knew what this season was all about. They know, too. Like, they understand second apron. They understand taxes. They understand how it is with the salary cap, a soft cap now in the NBA. But this team was all about winning back-to-back rings. This was leaving a true legacy. This is being a dynasty, something so difficult to pull off. So when Tatum goes down, again, it's more than a Game 4 loss. It is a title hopes going up in smokes.
It is a
what
window potentially closing on this group as we know it.
That's the tough part, man. Right. That's where you think about it. And again, it's watching this team grow. Brown drafted in 16, Tatum in 17. They were ahead of schedule, reaching Eastern Conference Finals before anyone expected, and when they were forced to be the guys. Go to the finals in 21-22 season, lose to the Warriors, come up short in the playoffs, and they could have been blown up. But this was a front office and a team that chose to be patient, keep the Jays together, go for it one more, and they finally reached the mountaintop. And by all means, the performance they put together in Game 3 and the rock fight it was in Game 4 where the Knicks played their best game, that was still down to the wire.
Right.
And this was still a team we were saying, I thought Celtics in 5 going into the series. So even when they were down 2-0, I was saying Celtics in 6 or 7, I think. I was saying more 7. They can win 4 out of the next 5 games. And from there, it would be okay, buck up and get into the finals and just win it. That all changes immensely now.
It does, and you mentioned the luxury tax and the salary implications here and what the Celtics might do this summer. I think they were going to plan on shedding some salary regardless of how this season played out anyway, right? Because they've been repeat offenders year after year, and that means that the tax bill goes up, right? They were on the hook for not only their payroll, but that penalty as well, which put them close to the $500 million.
Exactly.
Right? And so they didn't want to be there regardless of how this whole season played out. And now obviously things change with the Tatum injury, but you're going to look at guys like Kristaps Porzingis who have 1 year after this season left. You're going to look at Drew Holiday who has a couple of years left. They make a lot of money. You can get down to possibly, if not the second apron, you have an opportunity maybe to get to that number, 187, I think it stands right now. So if you're able to do that, great. But at the very least, you got to get to that second apron. Right? I mean, that's got to be the goal of the front office, going into the off season. But it's funny you mentioned the Warriors too, because I was thinking about that championship team. I don't think a lot of people saw that coming, right? The Warriors emerging from the ashes and winning that title in 22. Right? Well, if you remember, Kevin Durant was a part of the run in 2019. With the Warriors. He suffers that injury. He ends up, going elsewhere to Brooklyn. The Warriors don't make the playoffs the next couple of seasons.
Yeah.
Right? And so they still, again, they had Steph Curry. They had some of the foundational pieces still in place as the Celtics will. But the Warriors chose to sort of bide their time and wait and wait and wait, and then all of a sudden they were able to get back into it. So maybe that's sort of a blueprint for the Celtics moving forward.
Patience in that one, because they even kept Draymond Green and Steph together. They kept Klay together until this past season. Like that was patience with that too. I mean, it's going to have to be patience again for this front office and this roster. Here's Jaylen Brown again. Here's where he, finally found some words, but speaking on the Game 4 loss, but also on his teammate Jayson Tatum.
Tonight is tough. I think everybody's kind of in a loss for words, just because, one, losing the game, but obviously the concern with JT. But we pick our heads back up tomorrow and go from there.
The right thing from Jaylen Brown, he's now the leader. Everyone's looking at him. Pick your heads up, get back to it. Now here's Al Horford, obviously the vet. Al is such a leader for this team. Here's him in the locker room after the loss.
And as a group, we just have to, rally together. Because obviously we've lost our leader and the guy that gets us going. We have to come together as a group.
Al Horford, 18 years in the league, over 1,300 career games, regular and postseason. We lost our leader, the guy that does everything.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, there's no question that Jayson Tatum has grown into the leader of this team. So you lose that leadership, and then you lose the immense talent that he brings to the table. I mean, before that injury, that was one of the best games, postseason games, regular season games.
It was a
classic.
classic.
Jayson Tatum play. I mean, he was doing literally everything for the team: scoring, rebounding, playmaking, defending. I mean, it was a masterclass performance by Jayson Tatum, and it was all the way up until that injury. I mean, we've talked about Jayson Tatum in the past and maybe not showing up as much as we'd like him to in the fourth quarter. Well, he was showing up in the fourth quarter. He was going toe-to-toe with Jalen Brunson, and it was like one of those mano-a-mano duels. It was sort of a throwback, right, to Larry Bird and Dominique Wilkins back in the day, or even Paul Pierce and LeBron James.
Bird, Bernard King, Knicks, Celtics in the 80s.
Make it a Celtics-Knicks thing too, right? So it was fun to watch, and then all of the air just got sucked out of the balloon. And Sean Grande, who's the voice of the Celtics on the radio, said in a New York Minute, everything's changed.
And it's the truth. That was a New York second with that play too. Again, everything happened so fast, and every time you go back to watch it, everything slows down. That's what I can't get over. And it is, what will we see from Jayson Tatum? And we'll get into that. You also mentioned, you point out, like, the biggest thing is how the opposing team reacts.
Yeah.
Well, here are the leaders of the New York Knicks. After this big win, massive for them on their home court, now up 3-1, here's Karl Anthony Towns talking about Jayson Tatum.
I've been in a situation like that with my calf, so if you saw, I just walked up, obviously respectful of the space. I just put my head down and prayed to my mother, prayed to God, just, to put protection over him and comfort whatever the injury may be. I hope it's minor, like I said, that whatever the process that he needs to go through is a quick, painless process, and, we could see him back in the NBA. The NBA, we needed that kind of superstar talent that he is, and I know we're competing at the highest level in the playoffs, but this is a brotherhood.
Gets surreal hearing that. We need that superstar in the league. I put my hand on him, prayed to Karl Anthony Towns. His mother passed away, praying to her, praying to God. He's dealt with severe injuries in his career. Again, they know it. The non-contact, open floor, the reaction you see on Jayson Tatum, the pain he's in, the expression. And after such a big win for the Knicks, those guys know, like, it's a brotherhood. The hard work that Jayson Tatum has taken to put himself into the top 5 conversation consistently in the NBA, we don't know how long until he's back.
Yeah, they compete against each other on the floor, but at the end of the day, they're all working for the same company, right?
Yeah.
And so they're all trying to accomplish the same thing. They're all trying to make a living. They're all trying to establish themselves. And Karl Anthony Towns obviously talked about his injury history before, but I'll also give credit to, a guy that maybe a lot of people love to hate, and then Draymond Green, right? After the game last night, after the loss over in the semifinals against Timberwolves, Draymond Green was in his press conference and was asked about Steph Curry. Steph Curry's not expected to play in Game 5 either, with the Warriors' backs against the wall. They're down 3-1 as well, but Draymond Green actually answered with sending out prayers to Jayson Tatum and seeing a player like that go down. And it's sort of the same sentiment as Karl Anthony Towns, just talking about what he means to the league and how important he is, and to see somebody like that get hurt and miss time is just devastating. So shout out to Draymond Green for, sort of acknowledging acknowledging that after a loss, which I thought was pretty good on him.
I didn't know he said that. That's, again, like a sign of, you see what happened to Tatum?
Yeah.
Non-contact. And Draymond, been around a lot of basketball.
Right.
They know. These guys know when they see an injury go down like that. Last one we got for sound from this one. Here's Jalen Brunson, and this is how he started his press conference.
Sorry, real quick. Sorry. Just want prayers out to JT, man. I just want to make that and say that first and foremost. Thoughts and prayers with him, and just praying for the best.
39 points from Jalen Brunson. Massive Game 4 win at home. Go up 3-1 over the defending champs. He cut off the first question, said, "Hey, sorry," and had to say that. Again, and we keep saying it, but like that is just something of what this point is. Like, I was looking forward to getting in today and breaking down a win or a loss. I was looking forward to getting in today and breaking down how the Celtics can beat the Knicks. This is now coming in and breaking down what happened to Jayson Tatum and just trying to like drive across how much this like just straight up stinks to see. Such a good player, such a good person for this franchise, someone in the city, and obviously see how respected he is around the league. And just like that, it's very substantial.
Yeah, and we have our laptops on right here in front of us, just waiting for an update, right? Confirmation on the injury.
That's Shams. Yeah, Shams Charania waiting for it.
Yeah, as we record this. But, again, assuming the worst, right? And you sort of look at precedent and, you look at Achilles injuries from NBA players in the past, right? And it was a totally different time. But Dominique Wilkins back in the day, back in 1992, Achilles tear, he actually ended up coming back. He had the injury in January 92, came back in December of that same year, and was the same exact player for like 5 more years before he started to have his decline. Kobe Bryant was a little bit older when he got hurt. Remember, he got hurt and he shot the free throws, and then he came back like super quick, like within like 7 months or 8 months or whatever the timeline was. He had some other injuries he had to deal with.
And that was older age too.
Right, exactly. But I think the poster child, if you're looking for some morsel of hope when it comes to recovery, is Kevin Durant, right? And we mentioned it earlier with the Warriors, right? He had the Achilles tear in the finals, ends up missing the entire next season, and then comes back a few months into that campaign and ends up being, pretty much the same guy from a production standpoint. And so you're sort of hoping, if that is in fact the injury that the Celtics and Jayson Tatum are facing, you're hoping he has that kind of recovery and then that kind of bounce back as well.
561 days between Kevin Durant tearing his Achilles, playing his first game for the Brooklyn Nets. The one thing that gives hope, and some of the questions like I was getting right away of text like, you think he's going to be the same player? He's athletic, but he doesn't necessarily play above the rim and overly rely on that.
Right.
He's so fundamentally sound. He's surgical with his footwork, all his fundamentals, and just everything he does with the game that I'm not too worried about Jayson Tatum, the player, when he comes back. But it is that timeline and that time span.
And he's still young too, right? He's 27 years old. He'll be 28 next March. And so you're looking at, if he misses all of next season, he comes back in September in training camp. He's going to be 28 years old, He's still going to be young, and it's going to take him a little bit of time to get back into it and get close to the player that he was. But, he's got some runway there in terms of, his age relative to, the expectancy of an NBA player, right?
Yeah, and that's it. It's like it's still untapped into the peak. But for someone to happen with his style of play and exactly at his age, and this is a guy that we've seen literally physically get bigger, and you see how much of an emphasis he's put on his preparation, in a way his prehab, all his stretching routines he does before games. You have to wait an hour and a half after the game for him to get to his podium because he works out right after an NBA game. His recovery and his work ethic is so important to him. So it's someone that already has that there. So that's how I expect him to attack the rehab, what it could be from this injury. But that's going to be a long timeline. With him, don't rush it back. With his game, with how good he is, this is a guy that can play for a very long time. Like, until he's 38, he could put together plenty of seasons, just like we've seen plenty of stars do now. No need to rush it back right now. And I know Celtics fans are saying, but you got to go. We'll talk about that. We'll break down on what the timeline can look back. We'll take a quick break, but when we get back, we got some more sound from the Celtics, and we'll take a bigger picture look on what this Jayson Tatum injury could mean for the Boston Celtics next season and the season after that. Welcome back to Hold My Banner. George Balekji, Adam Pellerin here. Shout out you guys watching on Nesson Nation. The Nesson Nation debut. Celtics, everything you want NBA. Catch it 2 days a week, every Tuesday and Thursday, 1 to 2 p.m. right here on Nesson Nation. Also catch it on YouTube as well. All right, Adam, so we went through what we were hearing right after the game from players on both sides, Celtics and Knicks, after the Jayson Tatum injury. Let's take that bigger picture look, because now this is when the reality sets in. I wasn't thinking a Game 4 loss. I wasn't even thinking that this title is gone. The reality with this team is, once they started this season, this was going to be the last iteration, the last time we'd see this current construction of the team. Drew Holiday's 30-plus years old. It's going to be $30 million a year. Kristaps Porzingis is about to be 30. He's going to be $32 million a year. And with them being over the tax threshold and them paying $500 million nearly just to put a team on the floor, let alone just their salary, but the taxes as well, Jayson Tatum goes down, all of a sudden the outlook and the timeline of this team changes completely. And that's a guy that goes down with this injury, is a two-way player, defends 1 through 5, initiates the entire offense, was super durable. That's what made this injury scary. But now I'm thinking down the road, and we just spoke about it, but you go down now in May 2025, we may not see him until October, the beginning of the 26-27 season. That would be 500-plus days in between playing basketball. I think that just makes sense. You cannot rush him back, especially because this team, no matter what, in my opinion, was heading towards a rebuild. It could have been a soft rebuild, a soft relaunch, whatever you want to call it, but there were going to be overhauls going on with the salary and the roster after this championship run.
Yeah, and again, we're not sure what the injury is at this point. We're just assuming that it's going to be one of those serious injuries like the Achilles, where he's going to be out for an extended amount of time and possibly all of next year. Everybody's different, though, in their recovery. And again, you want them to err on the side of caution. But if he speeds up the recovery, and again, we could be sitting here next spring, right? And the Celtics, whatever sort of moves they make in the offseason, Jaylen Brown is having a career year. They can't trade Kristaps, but he's all of a sudden healthy, right? All these what if, right? Let's just say that they're in a strong position in the Eastern Conference where it's just like, you know what, this roster looks pretty good, a lot better than we thought. Some of the younger guys are starting to pop, or whatever they do in the offseason. All of a sudden, Jayson Tatum's ahead of schedule.
Yep.
That's when we'll revisit the conversation and say, well, if he's ahead of schedule and he's ready to go, and he could get like maybe 10 games in before the postseason, maybe it's a conversation you have. So I'm not ruling him out completely for next year. I do understand your point, though, because it's like you don't want to bring him back when he might be ready, but then that could compromise the following year, and not only the following year, but his career altogether, right?
Yeah.
You don't want to have another injury that's similar to this one that's sort of related, that could spell doom moving forward. So it's a difficult balance, but this is all hypothetical because you don't know what the injury is specifically, and you don't know what the timeline could be, and so you just have to wait and see what it is.
And what goes through my mind too is looking at the second apron, looking at the new CBA, looking at how you have to construct rosters. Jaylen Brown had to get shots put in his knee for him to be able to be available and play in this postseason. This offseason, it could be, maybe it's 1 of 2 options for him, rehab or surgery. And that very well, it could be either or it's rest and get ready for the season, and that would fall under the rehab. So it may not be major. But if there's a surgery on the line that Jaylen Brown might need for his knee, and that's the best path for him to continue to be at his peak in his game, then all of a sudden that changes what we're looking at next season with the roster and with new ownership coming in.
Right.
Bill Chisholm grew up a Celtics fan, is a diehard, we get it, but it is bottom line when it comes to ownership groups, and it has to make sense. And he can look at this and be doing all the Excel sheets and running all the numbers and going, I'm paying $230 million to put a team on the floor, and then $270 in repeater taxes, everything you mentioned, you get into the numbers on that, where this is a team that, again, pushes them in that direction and maybe speeds up the rebuild process. Because if both the Jays were around next season, it could be different and they can still retool on the fly. Maybe it's more of hit rock bottom quicker, but get back up to the penthouse even faster as well.
Yeah, maybe. And I think that they were planning on shedding salary anyway, right? And so they weren't going to be in that same bracket going into next season and pay all of that money anyway. Now, though, you're in a situation where you might even work harder to shed some of that money and not worry about some of those pieces that can help you win because you don't have Jayson Tatum. One thing I am curious about, now that it seems that Tatum is going to be out for a long time, this is the first time that we're going to see Jaylen Brown be the man.
For a long amount of time.
For an extended amount of time. And what can that look like for Jaylen Brown? And it will answer that question, right? We saw the great postseason run last year, the Finals MVP, right? But Jayson, there was still the 1-2 punch of Tatum and Brown, and Tatum is the better player. but giving Brown that opportunity, that's going to be interesting to see how he handles that, because he seems to me more of a leader type, at least through the media, when you see him, the way he talks, the way he conducts himself. Tatum's more of a, again, and it's not a slight to Tatum, but more laid back, right? Mm-hmm. Brown seems more of that sort of like, run through a wall type of guy, rather than, Tatum, who's got a much different approach. He actually talked about it the other night, right? It doesn't do him any good to show up to the arena mad. That's not what gets him going.
When I play happy, I play my best.
When he plays happy, he plays his best. Brown's a little bit different. When he's angry, it seems like he plays his best. So it's two different types. But again, with no Tatum, just Brown, that'll be interesting to see.
Jaylen Brown's a guy, we've seen him be mic'd up in games time and time again. And I love it when he's mic'd up, because when they're both in the huddle, he's the one leading it.
Yeah.
On the floor,
right.
in the game, and that points out. So you mentioned that it's now Jaylen Brown. That's the guy. Everyone's looking towards him. Here's head coach Joe Mazzulla after the game last night, but this is more on the team moving forward.
I mean, they'll be ready. I mean, that's just who they are. It's been that way. It's the locker room that they have, and they'll be ready. So, you trust the character of the guys in moments like this, and you take it one game at a time.
That's Joe Mazzulla. He'll give some answers in the media at the podium, but I think the Joe Mazzulla we see up at the podium is very different behind the scenes. Now, he's going to be a motivator. He's going to get the guys to lock in. As a head coach, you have to be that guy of, okay, we don't know when Jason's back, but we are still in this series. And that's him looking to a Jaylen Brown. That's also a Joe Mazzulla where if you ask people inside that Celtics building, inside TD Garden, there is the people that prioritize and put the most into Jayson Tatum being successful is Jayson Tatum himself, his immediate family, and then Joe Mazzulla. That's a person that cares about him succeeding more than Jayson Tatum himself in some ways. That's a coach is hurting, but that's a coach in a way putting on that face of, I got to look right up here, and we are still in this. It's only 3-1. And to your point, Jaylen Brown's still playing. He's still healthy. And what made this team so elite is their depth. When you look at the best teams in the NBA, they are the deepest. But the issue now is Jaylen Brown with the knee, Drew Holiday with the hamstring, Kristaps Porzingis with the illness. Derek White's been great. Al Horford, how much more can you get out of him? Now it's more from Peyton Pritchard. Now it's more from if Sam Hauser can play, Luke Cornett. The guys that you have to find a way to replace 28 to 35 points per game, but also initiating the offense and one of your best defenders.
On paper, when these players are at their best and you compare it to the Knicks roster, I mean, it's pretty even.
I would take the Celtics. If Drew was fine and Porzingis was Porzingis, no Jayson Tatum, I would take the Celtics.
Yeah, and again, so to that point, I think that if those players all of a sudden find it, right, for Game 5 in front of their home crowd, knowing that their star player is no longer playing, and they take it as a challenge, and they take it, and that motivates them, and they get to that next level, I can see them easily winning Game 5 at home. Now, Game 6 is a much different story. You guys can talk about it on the next episode. I won't be on that one if they get that far. But I think that Game 5 is a real possibility. It's tough, though, when you have Jaylen Brown, who's obviously hobbled by that knee. Drew Holiday's not the same guy. He was dealing with a hamstring. And then he had Kristaps Porzingis, who's got this weird virus that's affected him for a long time. But I will say that the one game that Tatum was not playing in the postseason against the Magic, those two guys stepped up. Brown had 36. Porzingis had 20 points and 10 rebounds. So if they can somehow reclaim that, and I will say this, too. A lot of people didn't think the Knicks were going to win this series. Now they're up 3-1. The pressure's on them, right? The pressure went from being on the Celtics as the favorites to win this series in their quest to win back-to-back titles to the Knicks now playing a Celtics team without Jayson Tatum. They're up 3-1.
They're the favorites.
They have an opportunity. They're the favorites. They have an opportunity to win this thing in Boston. They lose Game 5. Then they're in front of their home crowd again. Then the pressure really ramps up. When you got Ben Stiller in the front row and Spike Lee in the front row and you got
Kylie Jenner in the front row.
And Timothy Chalamet and all of these Knicks who were in the crowd, like Amari Stoudemire and Allen Houston and like the laundry list. Latrell Sprewell, I think I saw there.
Surprised he's allowed in that building still.
Yeah, right, exactly. And then Rick Pitino, by the way. I was just like, oh. But anyway.
That pissed me off.
I digress. The pressure will be on this Knicks team. So there is an opportunity there. Now, with all of that said, those guys need to play to their level. They need to play to what they are capable of, and we just haven't seen that from them.
Yeah. I mean, the Knicks just played their best game of the series. Celtics defensively struggled. Here's Jaylen Brown when talking about what was wrong with the defense for the Celtics.
Yeah, I mean, that's all that can be said. Get ready for the next one. get ready to fight, get ready to come out on our home floor and do what we need to do. That's the goal. It's still the goal. We got enough in this locker room. So I believe in my guys. We just, tonight defensively, it was terrible defensively tonight, to be frank. Just no resistance. We was just too concerned. Offense was great. Offense was fine. We made a lot of shots, but just no resistance on defense.
That's the leader in Jaylen Brown you see right there, calling out the defense. I mean, this game, it got away, but at the point when Tatum went down, it was 111-104. You don't see the Celtics allowing that many points, especially with 3 minutes to go in a game.
No.
The defense, I mean, Jalen Brunson, his shot-making ability was absolutely insane, but it was everything they were allowing inside the paint. All of the rebounds they were allowing, they were, I think, minus 12 in the rebound department, minus 13 in field goals attempted too. The Knicks were gaining extra possessions because they were absolutely killing it on the boards, and then also defensively getting whatever they wanted in the paint.
Yeah, they got doubled up on the offensive glass. They got doubled up in points in the paint. Mikal Bridges was getting anything he wanted, whether it was a fadeaway or pull-up.
Yeah.
Right? He was sort of old school, right?
It was an elite mid-range game. It was like LaMarcus Aldridge, DeMar DeRozan.
Yeah, it was. But just quickly, because I know we got to get the break. The Celtics looked like they were going to take control of this thing early, right?
Yep.
Great start in the first quarter, but then the Knicks kept going on these runs. They had 2 9-0 runs in the first half that sort of kept the Celtics from running away with it. And then the Celtics got up by 14. You had another 9-0 run, and then the Celtics, were able to hang around. Then they got outscored 30-13. From that point where they had a 14-point lead to the end of the third quarter.
Yeah.
So the Knicks, to their credit, this was different than games 1 and 2 where the Celtics were up by 20 and they just kept missing shots and blowing it. This was a Knicks team that came to play. And to credit to them, right? This was a game that, if you look at the series, the Celtics could have won those first 2 games. They win one of the games in New York. This was the game that the Knicks were meant to win.
Yeah.
Right? On paper.
Yeah.
But
they did everything right.
They did. They did.
And that was a big part. All right, we'll take another break here on Hold My Banner. When we're back, we'll take an outlook of what this franchise and what this dynasty could look like in the history of the Celtics. Back on Hold My Banner, George Balekji, Adam Pellerin. Shout out to you guys for joining us on the Nesson Nation debut. Hey, make sure to use the hashtag NessonChat. Tweet at Nesson as well. Tag myself or Adam Pellerin on X, Twitter, whatever you want to call it. We have one tweet I want to pull up here, Adam. More devastating injury. Tatum last night or Brady in 2008? Hashtag NessonChat. This one from our guy Beef Stew 2022. That's
great question.
Yeah.
Great question.
08 Brady is coming off that Super Bowl loss to the Giants when they went 18-1. This one for Tatum is going for that second straight NBA title.
Yeah, so, all right. So, obviously, injuries happen at different points in the year, right? The Celtics are already in the playoffs. Mm-hmm. Brady's injury happened in week 1. First offensive possession.
Yeah. Against the Chiefs, right?
Against the Chiefs, right? Exactly. Bernard Pollard, who injured Gronk a couple of years later in the post. But anyway, I digress.
You're not holding on to.
I would say, looking at it, because of the ramifications for the Celtics, this one might be more devastating. Now, again, going back to 08, and it might be recency bias, but going back to 08, you're right. They came off the 1 game short of a perfect season. You come into 08 and you're running it back. You got everybody back. You got Moss, you got Welker, you got all the guys on defense, and you're poised to make another run at it in redemption. But the thing is, you weren't gonna run the table. It wasn't gonna be 19-0. You might have won a Super Bowl that year, but that was a once in a lifetime type of thing, right? So devastating from the standpoint that yes, you were the Super Bowl favorite that year, and it would have been a great redemption story, but you end up winning 3 more Super Bowls later on, right?
Long run.
Because you're able to look back on it now and say, you know what? You won the 3 Super Bowls. Yeah, it stinks that you weren't able to do something special in 07. With the Celtics and Jayson Tatum, this could be it.
Yeah.
This could be the window closing as we know it for the Celtics with this group. Now, maybe, Tatum and Brown are able to, and the Celtics are able to build around those guys once again, but there is much more uncertainty, I think, surrounding this Celtics group than there was the Patriots, because you knew Brady was going to come back. You didn't know if there was another Super Bowl in the cards at the time, and I understand that, but they still had Brady and Belichick. You knew they were going to be there.
The head coach.
Right.
And that's the thing. I think this one hurts more because, again, you're close. You're in the postseason. You put together a great regular season. You're a historic team on the road. You got that win at Madison Square Garden, and this game was still tight, still close, even with that turnover late. This one hurts more, in my opinion, because it's the best player again. It's a guy that does everything. Brady did everything for the Patriots, on the offensive side of the ball.
Right.
But Tatum does everything to drive this Celtics, bus, and does everything for that offense and for that defense too, along with the other guys around him.
And what it means moving forward too, right? It's not just this year. It's next year. It's beyond.
And it's an Achilles for a really good athlete compared to an ACL for a quarterback.
Right.
There's a difference there.
A non-mobile quarterback.
Exactly.
Right.
Exactly. I mean, and you bring it up of like this could be it for this dynasty and for the Celtics franchise. We don't know how long the window is. Rings are really hard to win.
Yeah.
And you get caught up with it, especially in Boston with the success the Sox had in 04 and all the way through 18. With the Patriots, obviously, from 01 to 2019, the 2020 season as well themselves. For the Celtics, it was the Bird era. It was Bill Russell. It was the Bird era, the recent ones, the big three. And now it was this one, looking at dynasties. And the same way we've seen, now Larry Bird, it was his back deteriorating, retires in 92. McHale with his foot, Parrish still on the team. The big three, that's what this one is eerily similar to. They put that team together. It's Kevin Garnett, Ray Allen, Paul Pierce. They win the whole thing.
Right.
The second big three, right? They win the whole thing. Yes, you're right. Second big three for the Celtics. Respect to Parrish.
Us old heads, I got to
I love Chief. I love Chief. All-time great. But you put those three together. They win it 07-08. Next season, KG tears his ACL. Season after that, they lose to Kobe in the finals. 2012, Ray Allen leaves. 2013, they're traded to Brooklyn.
Yeah.
For this one it's again, all these moving parts and putting them together.
Yeah.
And that's what the one that hurts. Of like, I think this was it. I really think this was it. So many things had to go right, including swindling teams for the trade for Porzingis, maximizing his slim, healthy window, and swinging that trade to get Drew Holiday, who was dumped by the Bucks, sent to Portland, and making it work to get him from Portland to Boston. A lot had to go right to put this team together.
Yeah, no, I mean, I think it's a decent analogy for sure. I think I still hold on to some hope that this isn't it for Tatum and Brown, right? The team around them will look different, right?
Yeah.
And so the central figures, are still going to be there. We just don't know how Tatum's going to recover and if he's going to be the same guy. And even with Brown and his knee and, all that stuff moving forward, when it came to the second big three, you knew those guys were done here. They were, and KG and Ray and Paul went on to play some more, but they weren't like the guys at that point, right?
Yeah.
So that's why their window closed, because they didn't have the ability to carry a team anymore. We don't know I hope that Jayson Tatum will still have that ability when he's done.
Yeah.
From whatever the timeline is for recovery.
Yeah.
I hope Jaylen Brown is not that. They're still relatively young guys. KG at the end, I think, was 36 years old, right? 37 maybe even. And Paul Pierce is not too far behind. Ray, even older than KG at that point. And Ray obviously, jumped ship for Miami before KG and Pierce left Boston or got traded to Brooklyn. But I think that there's still some hope left for Tatum and Brown, or at least Tatum.
It's the Jays era isn't over.
It's not yet, but the rest of the team around them.
Because I think what you look back is Drew Holiday is going to be 35 next season. He's going to cost $32 million on the salary. Porzingis will be 30, and he'll be $30 million. And he's only, since he got to the Celtics, regular season games only, he's played in 99 of the 164 potential regular season games.
Right.
And this was a guy dealing with the illness. Al Horford, he could be retiring. I don't think the Celtics return him. I think, again, it's hit a hard reset on this entire roster. He's played 18 years in the league. He's a future Hall of Famer. But it is how this core looks. And the outlook I have for the Celtics team now is, and I would rather go with the hard choice, but you got to rip the Band-Aid off and do it now. I'd rather go for the hard rebuild now, hit the hard reset, and get back to the winning and contending way sooner than trying to string it out. And that's where I look at, again, from what we see, from the reaction we see, I think it's worst case scenario injury for Jayson Tatum. Best case, it could be a really bad ligament injury, but it could still be a long recovery. With Jaylen Brown, we don't know what his knee is going to hold for him coming into this offseason. You still have the Jays. I don't trade either one. And anyone saying that's a swing, and we'll get into talking draft lottery and Cooper Flagg, you can't pass up on having two elite wings still in their prime before the age of 30.
Right.
The reason the Knicks are built the way they are, Adam, with OG Anunoby having a game of a lifetime as he did last night, having Mikal Bridges doing the same thing, the reason they're built that way was to stop the two J's. Because everyone was molding their teams on how to beat them. It's what the Magic did. It's what we're seeing teams out west do as well to match up with them in the finals. You don't part way with the Jays, but I think the sooner the better that you hit restart on this rebuild, or more of hit start on this rebuild.
Yeah, it's sort of a retool, right? And I think that's the word that the Bruins had used, right?
Yeah,
Not
retool.
A retool, only because you can't hit a hard reset because you have those two guys and still have Jaylen Brown playing next year, right? And Derek White is going to be here probably, right? Like, I mean, he's still got a bunch of time left on his contract. He's still a valuable piece, and he can help you moving forward when Tatum comes back. But the reason you got Kristaps Porzingis and Drew Holiday was to help you in the postseason, right? Especially Porzingis, right? You trade Marcus Smart, you get Porzingis in here, and he was great in limited action last year in the postseason.
Yeah,
right? And you could see what he could do. This year, you're just not seeing the same thing. You got 1 year left, $30+ million left on the contract, and if you're not going anywhere next year, he is the first guy you look at when it comes to trade, right? He and Holiday.
Yes.
This offseason. So in that sense, like, you're definitely getting rid of pieces that can help you make a postseason run. I still think that, I don't think they're going to be able to dump enough salary to not be competitive next year, right?
Yeah.
Especially with Jaylen Brown now getting the keys and maybe being the man. Peyton Pritchard's still going to be on the roster, sixth man of the year.
Yeah, they got 3 years left on his contract.
Still got a lot of talent.
Sam Hauser's going to be here for a while, too.
Right, exactly. Still got a lot of talent. There'll be elevated roles for some guys, and who knows who they'll bring in if they're able to trade some of these pieces, too.
It's, if you look at what the roster can be, if Jayson Tatum's out for a significant amount of time, if Holiday, Porzingis are traded, and Al Horford retires, or if they just don't bring him back in free agency, you would have as your best players Jaylen Brown, Derek White, Peyton Pritchard, Sam Hauser, Luke Cornett. Maybe you get some minutes out of Jordan Walsh. Maybe you have J.D. Davison, developing at the NBA level. Baylor Shireman, Neemias Queta. And this is a front office and Brad Stevens that knows what he's doing. Who out there they trade for, I can't even wrap my mind around yet. Who they can go out there and sign, like, that's all a possibility too. But like, that would be the core if there are the guys that won't be here next season that we think, and if Jayson Tatum's not available next season as well.
Yeah, absolutely. And Danny Ainge made some tough decisions back in the day because he knew that they were looking to rebuild. Again, a little bit of a different situation because you have Tatum coming back at some point and you still have Jaylen Brown. But these are some of the decisions you have to make. And you mentioned some of those young guys, too. If they get elevated roles next year, that could make you better in the long run, right?
Yes.
It could make you a deeper team in the long run, and it would also, build up the value of some of these guys. They might be valuable in terms of a trade, right?
Yeah.
Maybe you get to next year's trade deadline and you can throw, whoever that is in a deal to make you better in the future. It can be beneficial in that way as well.
I mean, Peyton Pritchard's been great the last 2 games for the Celtics.
Yeah.
The confidence he's having with his shot, his all-around game too, how intense he has been on defense too. Like, okay, you get him playing more. Sam Hauser rolled ankle. He hasn't been playing, or an injured ankle. He hasn't been playing in this series. Right. But I think of the J.D. Davisons and the Jordan Walshes. Like, if you can develop a serviceable shot for Jordan Walsh, everything he does with his athleticism, what he can bring on the defensive end, if you got that guy playing 82 NBA games, that benefits him in the long run, exactly to your point. This could go one of 2 ways. It could be best case scenario, everything's all right, and it's a soft retool, or it's going to be Celtics fans. You need to have patience as they develop a Davison, as they develop a Jordan Walsh. And if Jaylen Brown's there, that could be a team that can mess around, get into the play-in, maybe make some noise in the playoffs, or it could be a team that missed the postseason altogether, like you mentioned with the Warriors.
Right.
But if it gets you back to that mountaintop and gets you back to winning rings, whatever the path is, what's best long-term for Jayson Tatum and Jaylen Brown? That's my priority if you're the Celtics. All around, that's my priority.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think, too, that the fan base is understanding of that, right? They don't have to worry about pressure from the fan base to win now based on the circumstances and the Jayson Tatum injury. And so you get the opportunity to get a look at some other guys, some extended looks. And, who knows, maybe as early as this postseason, right?
Yeah.
You could see, some of those guys that you mentioned come off the bench. And, I know you shorten the rotations in the playoffs, but now, the Red Sox, geez, it's baseball season. The Celtics working with an 8-man rotation.
Yeah.
You need an 8th man.
Yeah.
Right? So who is that going to be?
And the minutes they play now benefit in the long run. So we'll see. Hey, speaking of teams that were in the playoffs and got an expedited reset, Dallas Mavericks somehow get number 1 overall pick.
Unbelievable.
I know. What that could mean for Cooper Flagg. I think he ends up in Dallas. But also what it can mean. Maybe he ends up elsewhere. We'll be talking about that on Hold My Banner right after this break. Back on Hold My Banner, George Balekji, Adam Pellerin. Adam, let's get into it. So, number 1 prospect in this upcoming NBA draft, the man from Maine, Cooper Flagg. And last night, before all this went down for the Celtics and the Knicks, the NBA held its draft lottery. And what do you know? The Dallas Mavericks, a team that traded Luka Doncic, generational talent, middle of the season, claimed it was better to win now, got into the play-in, got bounced. Nico Harrison being a moron running that front office. They get the number 1 overall pick. They had a 1.8% chance to land the number 1 overall pick, and they got it.
11th best odds to get the number 1 overall pick. And hey, they just get it, even after trading Luka Doncic to the Lakers and helping out LeBron and helping out the NBA and getting that big market, some more eyeballs. I mean, here you go. Here's the number 1 overall pick. I mean, it was just the luck of the draw. I mean, that's what it was. It's a lottery, right? I mean, you can't help that. It's just luck.
And I've seen David McMenamin, Tim Bontemps say they were in the room and stuff was drawn. It's legit.
Yeah.
Get it out of the room. They walked out their chief security officer and some accountant, I think, and they're like, he's the only man that knows the results. Let the world know the results live. I would live with that because if you're Adam Silver and you're all about making your league the best and retaining the integrity of the league too, make it public with that drawing. I don't understand why he'd want to help the Mavericks, but again, I don't buy that the Mavericks, 1.8% chance after everything that happened, they just get Cooper Flagg. I'm happy for Mavs fans after what happened to them to lose Doncic.
Yep.
I believe in karma, and I don't want karma to come around on Cooper Flagg, but I just don't want Nico Harrison to be rewarded for his stupidity. That's my thing.
Yeah, I hear you. And all I could think about that whole time was the bitterness from 1997 when the Celtics lost out on Tim Duncan. That's all I could think about.
Right.
That's it. It all comes back to the Celtics for me when it comes to the lottery because I think everybody's scarred. I think we're all scarred from back in 2007 too when we were supposed to be getting Kevin Durant and Greg Oden. That didn't happen. You end up with Jeff Green. Granted, Celtics end up winning a championship after that, but. It was scarring to watch the lottery. I still think about that day, man. Oh, those 2 days.
2017, they had the number 1 overall pick. They traded back from 1 to 3. Sixers took Markelle Fultz.
Yeah, there you go.
And Tatum fell to them. So there is that. Is there any way we could get Cooper Flagg to Boston? Because again, I'm looking at all avenues of this retool.
Yeah.
Here was one tweet that I saw. It's laying out from Mavs Muse, which was great. I really hope we get Cooper Flagg so we can send him to the Celtics the moment he hits his prime. Wouldn't hate that. That would be a Cooper Flagg in his prime. That would be Jayson Tatum, let's say 32 years old, around there.
Yeah.
There was also the floating of other tweets we saw too of, well, I would put Jaylen Brown with a bunch of future firsts. I am not trading the Jays for Cooper Flagg.
Yeah.
Here's one I have for you. Here's one avenue. And again, this is me thinking worst case scenario for Jayson Tatum, but he still recovers in the long run, and thinking Jaylen Brown will need to rehab his knee and could miss some time. Both of them miss. Celtics hit the hard reset. The number 1 prospect in the 2026 draft is from Brockton, AJ DeBonsa.
Yeah.
That would be a fix I'd be in order for. I'm fine with Adam Silver not having any integrity with the draft lottery and having the number 1 pick end up with the Celtics, and you have the Jays bringing along AJ DeBonsa. That's the 3rd iteration of a big 3 in Boston.
Yep.
And that would be a team that would win rings.
Yeah, man. I mean, it worked for the Spurs, right? When David Robinson went down back in the day, and then they get Tim Duncan, they end up winning all these titles under Greg Popovich. I mean, Celtics could subscribe to the same sort of recipe. That's perfect. I love it. He laid it out.
Simple.
Done. Problem solved.
There were the 2 number 1 overall pick trades I thought of. 93, the Magic draft Chris Webber, flip him quickly. Penny Hardaway, 3 firsts in that. Is that the return they get? And then also with 2017, the Fultz Tatum one.
Yep.
Teams don't often trade away this number 1 overall pick. And in a draft where it's Cooper Flagg, Ace Bailey, Dylan Harper, and again, all the talk we had about the second apron, like the people that are smarter than us know the actual tax numbers and how everything works, they're not going to pass up on a Cooper Flagg at a cost control contract in a way, especially with the tax being very real.
No, absolutely. And if you're Mark Cuban, you are going like this. I mean, you got Cooper Flagg and you have, obviously, you have the trade of Luka Doncic, and now like all of a sudden, like everybody's with you again. I mean, that is just incredible. It's amazing what that lottery can do for you. And in the Mavs case, it's now not only got, the popularity back, but it's got the fact that they can actually compete next year with, Kyrie Irving's dealing with the injury. He'll come back at some point. Anthony Davis, Klay Thompson, PJ Washington, right? Like you got a pretty good core. I mean, this was a team that went to the NBA Finals, right?
Yep.
A couple of years ago, granted with Luka, but now you get Cooper Flagg in its place. He's going to take some time to develop, but he's one of those guys that's going to hit the ground running.
I mean, to step into a locker room where you have Anthony Davis and Kyrie Irving, 2 of the all-time great basketball players of this generation, guys respected around the league. And Cooper Flagg was, as a freshman, the man at Duke, carried that team, everything that they achieved, and you just saw so much maturity. And how good he is as a player affects a game without the ball in his hands, which is such a thing that is a rarity in today's game. Does everything on both ends of the floor. I hate to say it, but all the issues Nico Harrison had with Luka Doncic, he won't have that with Cooper Flagg. Work ethic, being in shape, playing on both ends of the floor. He fits a culture they're going for in Dallas.
Yeah, Michael Finley's not going to grab a beer from his hand because he's underage.
Oh, that too.
Like he did with Luka.
Drinking age, yeah, it's still 21 in Texas.
It is.
Double check that.
It
it's
is.
across the country.
Yes, it is.
It's one of those things where it just fits. I wish it was in Dallas, and it's solely because of Nico Harrison. Cooper Flagg in Boston would have been great. Where I wanted him, Adam, 76ers. Him with Tyrese Maxey. Pressure isn't there because Joel Embiid's still there. And you know what? That's a team in a rebuild. That would have been a fun rivalry. Hometown kid comes back wearing a 76ers jersey. Maxey, Flagg, Brown, Tatum. That's something I would like to see.
Oh, man, I wouldn't have wanted the kid from Maine to be playing for the Sixers,
I know.
man. Like, I couldn't deal with that. He's in Dallas. He's far away. He's in the Western Conference. It'll be cool to see him once a year. It'll be cool to watch him play. I wish him nothing but the best of success, having worked in Maine, for 4 years and sort of an honorary Mainer. So I feel like I can celebrate with the vacation land right here and wish Cooper the best. But yeah, I can't believe he's going to Dallas. That's unbelievable.
I hate it. Cooper Flagg, #1 overall pick in this year's draft. AJ DeBonson next year. Hey, big ups for New England.
Yeah, how about
basketball.
That? Let's go.
Love to see it. He's Adam Pellerin. I'm George Balekji. This is Hold My Banner. Appreciate you guys tuning in on Nest Nation every Tuesday and Thursday, 1 to 2 p.m. Catch us right here with Hold My Banner. See you guys then.